communication is key with all of this, because in the beginning, those were our biggest fights, where I had a frustration that I didn't tell him and he had something that he didn't tell me. And then we finally worked it out. We're like, oh, we're all on the same page here. We just had to work on it.
Welcome to the Insurance Refocused podcast, where we're highlighting real agent stories and how they are innovating to respond to the changes and challenges happening in the independent insurance industry. My name's Lindsay, and I can't wait to introduce you to my amazing co-host, who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace. Mom, how you doing today?
Linz, I am excited for today. I don't know about you, but these are the days that I get a ton of energy because we get to connect in a different way. I get to do it with you. We get to talk to amazing people, but I'm having a great start to my day. I hope you are as well.
I am. I was so excited for today that I jumped the gun on my alarm this morning, actually, and I thought that I was waking up for my 5:15 workout class, but it was midnight. And I woke up, completely brushed my teeth, put on my workout clothes, was picking up my keys to walk out the door, and looked at the clock, and I was like, what in the world is happening? So I'm super excited for today, apparently. Wanted to forego 5 more hours of sleep.
Oh, I hate those days. I typically do that when I'm flying, and I think I'm going to miss a flight, and I wake up every hour on the hour or whatever, which sadly for me, that could be a lot of days of my year. So yeah. I know that feeling. I don't typically get up and shower and brush my teeth and get dressed when I do that, but I get you. I'm right there with you, my friend. Yeah.
I don't know what I was doing. What's crazy is I have a 4:20 flight tomorrow morning that would be the normal thing to do that for. But no, I chose the 5:15 workout class that I go to 3 times a week. And it's a very regular part of my routine. I wouldn't have missed it. I don't know what's going on, but super pumped to have our guest with us today that we have. I was introduced through kind of a young person mastermind type deal that we have going on, but I've also followed his story along on LinkedIn for years now since I've been in the industry. So Taylor Garcia, so excited to have you on. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's such an honor. I listened to you guys' episodes, so when you guys asked, I was thrilled.
Yeah. Taylor, it's so funny. We were talking a little bit about this before pressing record, but I feel like I know you, even though I've really only met you through Zoom once in my life before. But I feel like I know you. I know about your business. I know about your thoughts and feelings and values around work. So I'm pumped today to share that with the listeners in a recorded, bottled up format.
Yeah. Well, and that means a lot because I try to be honest and vulnerable and kind of share the goods, the bads, the ugly, just so other people can resonate and go, hey, it's not always glamorous, or it's not always, whatever. It's not always bad. I try to be an open book, so to speak,
Yeah, Taylor, I think you do an amazing job of it, because I jumped on this and thought, hang on a minute. I don't think I've ever actually had a one-on-one conversation, but I do feel like I know you as well. And that's the beauty of social media and putting yourself out there. And the way in which you do it is authentic enough that I felt like I knew you, which is interesting. And I don't know that everybody has that skill. So hats off to you. It's a pleasure watching your journey. It really is. And I'm excited for you to share it. So with that, let's do it. Let's actually talk about your journey. Okay. So
absolutely.
You are the owner of Jackson & Jackson. I think that's the fair thing to say, but you haven't always been the owner of Jackson & Jackson. So give us a little bit of history, why insurance is your thing, how you get to be in insurance. I like saying that. Everybody's journey is a little funny. And then bring us to today, and let's talk about what's happening in your world.
Yeah. No, thank you. And okay, so long story short, I was a musician. Through and through, my heart was in music since I was 8 years old. Never a school person, never in academics. It was always band. It was always, I was in my garage learning, and I navigated towards drums, and it was always just, which as a parent now, I think back, I'm like, oh, my poor parents, like, and my sister hated it. Like, but I would just sit in my garage for hours upon hours after schools and on summer breaks. And that's what I wanted. And I knew that from the beginning, was like, this is what I'm going to do full time for the rest of my life. Like, and I didn't care about anything else. And so I did it from what I really kind of got into it in high school all the way up till about 1920. I joined a band. I toured across the country. I did it full time. I was getting paid to do it. Wasn't getting paid a lot, but I was doing it, and I was, living it. And then I worked some jobs off retail and different things. I was a contractor for a little bit, like an apprentice. And then when I met my wife, we were actually met her at one of my band's shows, and we really hit it off quickly. She worked at the family agency. She was in the accounting department. She's been there since she was 13. She didn't love it. She really didn't like it at all, but she's like, it's a job. It pays me. It's my parents. Like, and so we kind of kept doing that. She was working there. I was doing the music thing. I would go to visit their office just to drop her a coffee or whatever on my days off. And my in-laws were great. I mean, I will say I had he was like, wait a minute, you're dating a tattooed guy playing drums in a band with no real job. Like, I kind of had a lot of strikes against me, but I was polite and I was kind, and my parents really instilled a lot of that growing up. I mean, kudos to them. And so that was the one thing I did have. And I was social and I was personable, and they were honestly welcomed me very quickly. That brief moment my father-in-law gave me,
over, over
and
the
then
hump.
It was, but and we quickly, like, my wife Sam and I fell in love fast, and it was all kind of going quick. And then so 3 years in, we ended up getting pregnant, and then we were engaged. So it was kind of like all at the same time. And that was when my father-in-law pulled me aside and was like, hey, I'm not trying to stop you from doing music, or I'm not trying to like do that, but like, are you thinking about a career? Because like, you're gonna have a family and like, you're getting married. And I was like, yes, I am, because I know that at some point I'm not going to be this naive musician that's broke, just trying to bring my family along this journey with me.
Right.
And I also thought, best case scenario, I get in this big band and I do this, but I'm gone a lot and I don't see my family. And I didn't want that either. I wanted to be present. My dad always worked from home. He had his own business. So I just wanted that. And so that was when he offered me. He said, hey, do you want to come in and work for me? Like, we have some spots available as a producer. This was no like ownership. This was just, do you want to come sell insurance? And I was like, okay. And he had a pretty big agency. So I was like, okay. So I went to go take my test, failed it, took it again, failed it. And I was like, this is a sign. This isn't for me. And then he was just like, try it one more time. Third time's a charm. And of course I passed, and I was like, okay. So, so that's kind of how it got started. That was in 2015. So just about 10 years ago.
Wow.
This is so funny. We just released a case study today with Callahan and Rice, who is the agency that Landon Bentham works for.
Yeah.
And he joined his father-in-law's agency in 2015 and took over January 1st of 2025.
Oh, really? Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Which is, I believe, is when you told us earlier that you took over. So like, as you're telling this story, he didn't start out as a musician. I think he was a golf pro, I believe,
was
his poison of choice.
He's a golfer.
But,
That's so funny.
The stories are very, very similar here. So that's just really interesting to me.
You know what? I met a lot in 2015. In that time, there was a lot of people that I connected with. Josh Lipstone, Landon was one. Back when Agency Nation, I think it was, we were doing the conferences there. That really helped me feel like, oh, I'm not the only like young guy here, because a lot of my agency was older people. I was for sure the youngest one in my 20s, And so when I started to meet some of them, it was like, oh, there's other people that are in a similar boat. This is nice,
Yeah. So when you were telling your story, I can't help but tell you that, Lindsay just got married, and we absolutely love her husband. And, he is he fit very well, very quickly. But when you were describing tattoo musician out there, there's a movie that like came into my mind where I can't remember the name of it. Do you know the name of it, Lindsay?
You're thinking of the movie Why Him?
Yeah, exactly. Why Him?
Oh yes,
And it's so funny. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't help but think that. But here's the thing:
so funny.
People may not look the part, but their heart is different than what they look like. And clearly your in-laws saw something different than maybe not the ideal of what they had in mind, but the reality is obviously they trusted you enough to take over the family business, which is pretty special, like that's a pretty cool thing. So we're taking your thunder. Obviously now you're the owner of Jackson and Jackson. What did that process look like? Because, most people may think it's faster than what it actually is and may think that it's different. And the reality is the journey's different for everybody. I'd love to hear you describe what coming in as a producer that knows nothing about insurance to being the owner of the family agency, like what does that journey look like?
Yeah, it was. I'm not going to lie. It was a little messy. There was times where emotions got in the way and feelings, and thankfully, I'm not very arrogant or big headed. Like I didn't feel the feeling of like I have to own this to do well. The only thing that we had a little bit of a different scenario was my father-in-law was much older, so technically there should have been a generation between us. But so I started to see as I was producing and doing fairly well. I wasn't some huge producer, but I was doing pretty well, and I saw him slowing down, but there was nobody really taking those reins to like what's next, and I was really hungry and motivated and driven, and I was a little bit nervous of like, hey, if they're pulling him and my mother-in-law were pulling back and never in the office, they were kind of retiring like slowly, but there was nobody to lead that next charge. So we were all everybody in our office kind of just was doing their own thing. I mean, there was no core mission. There was no center. Where are we going? It was just, well, everybody comes in. There was no meetings really after a while. So it was just like, well, maybe this is something I need to talk about. And I started to associate myself around other agency owners, and I saw kind of what they were doing, and I was really excited. And that's when it kind of sparked me like, maybe I can do this, I've been doing this long enough. I understand now the sales side of it. And the only thing I was missing was obviously the accounting and the operational side. But, so then this was probably not even 2 years ago, maybe 2 years ago or so, 3 years ago. I went up to him and I just told him, I said, hey, Actually, I approached it very wrong. Don't do what I did, because I approached this as I think I might go do my own thing.
Oh.
But I went into it not like I don't like what you're doing. It was just like hey, I have this vision of doing this and I don't know if I can do that here. This is kind of what I'm thinking. And I left it to him because I know he's been in the business a long time, and he was like, okay. And he like kind of sat back, and I was like, because he thought I was like everything was great, and I was like, the only thing I'm concerned about is, X, Y, and Z. And he said, okay. And he said, well, actually, I've been waiting for this because like, I didn't think, honestly, you were ready for this at all. The fact that you never brought it up, I was hoping that this would be the case one day, but he really was waiting for me, and I was kind of waiting for him. And that's when I talk to people about all of this. Has been communication is key with all of this, because in the beginning, those were our biggest fights, where I had a frustration that I didn't tell him, and he had something that he didn't tell me. And then we finally worked it out. And we're like, oh, we're all on the same page here. We just had to work on it,
One of the biggest challenges, I think, for internal perpetuation in general is people don't know how to raise their hand. They don't know how to say, I'm interested. And as the owner, they're fearful if I say, hey, I'm thinking about the future. Are you interested? It could trigger a response that's not favorable. Therefore, the status quo is easier. It's safer. It's whatever. And oftentimes some potential future owners say, I don't like, it's never even been talked about. I don't think it's possible. Therefore, I think I'm going to exit, when all they had to do was say, hey, listen, I just want you to know I'm interested, and let's start having a conversation. Like I literally wrote an article about this, that the silence is actually what is the challenge. And oftentimes it's not money, it's not whatever, it's the silence and the length of time that the silence exists. You know what I mean? So I love that you said, true. Hey, I did it wrong. You know, it's okay, but at least you did it. Like, in my opinion, you didn't do it wrong because you actually spoke up. Would have been wrong was saying, here's my resignation, see you around. My head's already somewhere else. And, you know, what you said was, hey, you know, this is my vision. If it doesn't fit, it's great. It's okay. But then I'm going to have to go do something somewhere else. But I don't know that that's wrong, because I think there's a bigger wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah. It's interesting though. So I love that you don't paint this picture of, you know, it was rainbows and butterflies and everything was great. And, you know, I knew from the moment that I took the job that I was going to be the owner. That's not the case. Right. Yeah.
And even from that conversation to then January 1st, like, there was a lot there that, okay, he said, okay, I'm going to make you, he promoted me to president. He said, I'll still be CEO and, you know, chairman, but you're going to run the agency from now on, and I'll give you full access. You just, you know, come to me for the big financial decisions and the big things. And I was like, okay. And that was a whole learning experience that I just didn't even realize, like, oh, these are the things that I didn't know. The finances, the accounting, the all of the stuff that I was like, oh, I didn't see all this part. You know, I saw the marketing and the sales and the service side of like our operations, like, but I didn't see all the business side of things. And those last couple of years, he kind of gracefully let me learn that while I was learning before the full process. But there was still emotions along the way too. And it was like, well, you're not helping. And he would say stuff to me and we were kind of going back and forth. But I just kept trying to like stay at like, we're a family, we're on the same team. Let's try to make this work, you know, but it's hard. And then he was like, well, it's still business, even though it's family, it's still business. And I'm like, I know. So it was really like wearing those hats of like, when we're at work, this is work stuff. And when we're not, even though we struggled with blending those two, we really tried to separate, you know, when we're at the family barbecue, can we just like be a family and not like fully, I mean, that's never the case because we're always talking about it, but can we try to
I joined Agency Focus at the height of planning my wedding.
Okay.
And if I like scrolled back up in my Teams messages from my mom, because I tried to be like, okay, we talk about work stuff like on Teams, and then we talk about like you just like in my head, mom, like that's just like how it went, right? Like if it's after hours, like sure, we'll text each other about work or whatever. If it's the weekend, like yes, we text each other about work. But like during the work day, like I'm on my computer, text me on Teams about work. She would be like, can you email this person? Hey, what's an update on this? I saw your wedding pictures come in. Back to, can you do this thing for, and I'm like, what the hell is going on right now? Or she'd be funny. Like, I looked at the catering. I don't like that option. I like this option. I'm like, this is not like a work agenda thing. Like, hang on a second. Whoa.
You got to figure out that, you know, the delineation. The other thing is, you know, when Lindsay joined the team, my husband was like, you talk to her 1,000% more than I do now. I'm like, I know, but I have no idea what's happening in her world. I know what's happening in my company, but I don't know what's, you know what I mean? It's just so funny. So finding that dynamic is different, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, for me, for the longest time, so I didn't even kind of spot. So those first 10 years, so my wife was working in the agency too. So I had her, and then I had my in-laws, and then we had my son at that time. He was in the office with us. So what was so hard at some point, and I finally had to say something, was like, there's, like you're saying, Lindsay, it was like for 1 minute I'm dad because my son needed a bottle. And then my wife would be like, hey, did you pay this bill? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, I got to do that. Okay. And then Clark, my father-in-law, would be like, hey, Taylor, did you run that sales meeting? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, there's so many different things going on.
I'm in like a whirlwind. I have no idea what's going on.
I can't be all these hats at once. Like, so we did try to have those talks. And I told my wife at some point, I was like, I don't know if I can manage being dad, husband, salesman, employee, all in one,
all at the same time.
all at one work day, like
Agreed.
within each other,
Agreed.
Totally.
So tell me, you took over January 1st. Yeah.
Mhm.
This is this year.
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way. That's a
Thank you.
huge accomplishment. Tell me what it's been like. We're about we're 7 months and 23 days since then. So 7 months and 22 days. Tell me what that's been like. Like, give me, as you reflect on those months, tell me what that journey has been like as the owner. And, I guess answer some questions like, is it what you thought it was going to be? Were there any major surprises? If someone's starting this journey, what would you want them to hear, I guess is what I'm asking you.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's been a roller coaster for me, especially being in California, but it's certainly harder than I thought it was going to be. I will say that. Like, I was kind of running the agency for a while, but I never had the pressures of making payroll, making sure my father-in-law handled that. And I know he had a savings in case something happened or whatever, For me, it was a little different. And so that pressure of making all those, taking care of payroll, doing all that, like, I didn't feel that pressure until I took over. And then it was like, oh, wow, this is like a real thing. Like, and so it was a little bit of a shock, but I'll say, like, that first week, I was really actually up until January 1st, but December to then, we were kind of finalizing everything. I was talking to the team a lot about what's going to happen. Here's all the things we're going to do to grow. And we were all really, actually, everybody was on board because I've all worked with them for 10 plus years.
Sure.
So everybody was like, knew me. They were like, we're excited for this. And then that first week, I was like, January 1st, let's go, guys. And then January 7th hit and we had all the fires. And then that was like immediately that first week, like, we had our first sales meeting. And then that next week, it was like, I got a call from one of my agents, May, and she's like, hey, we got a call that one of our insured's house burned down. And I was like, oh no. And then it was another and another. And then all of a sudden, by the end of that week, we had about 50 homes burn completely down.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Their autos gone, their pets were gone, and we're just, we don't have a huge team. So we weren't set up for that kind of volume, like all of a sudden, like, so we were all just, and my agents had a really hard time. Like, I don't know what to say to them. How do we handle these calls? Like, we've never really had that. And so I was on most of them. I'm like, hi, I'm the new owner. I'm Taylor. I'm here to help you, and
wow, such a crazy thing to happen so quickly. Like, my goodness gracious.
I know.
Wow.
And I will say there was so many people that were in the industry as a whole. And that's why I think it's really important to connect with other ones, because even I had some even volunteering, like, hey, I'll come help with your phones that week. Do you need help? Like, I'll come to your office. And I was like, thank you. I was like, thank you guys. Even my father-in-law was like, I don't know how to do this anymore, but I can talk to people, and so we kind of just all hands on deck that first like month of January. It was really tough, and I'm an emotional guy, so like it was just heavy on me personally because I hear all these stories, and I'm like, so we only, out of the 50, there was one gentleman who let his policy cancel that we couldn't get in touch with the last couple months. And I will say everybody else was okay, and I will say the companies came through.
That's awesome.
But the one gentleman I felt really unfortunate for, and he was just, and I'd have that hard conversation. But yeah, and so honestly, I just felt like, well, this is truly a test. Like, if I could get through this, man, like, and I told my whole team that. I was like, if we could get through this, honestly, like, and I'm not going to say there's nothing worse because I didn't want to put that into the air, but I was like,
don't do that. Don't put that into the universe.
But I was like, we're this is only going to make us stronger and better. And here's how we can better our claims process moving forward. And it really did kind of help us focus on some other areas. So that was like the first. So I know I kind of had a little bit of a unique experience taking over the like first experience. And then we had companies pulling out of the state. So we lost a ton of clients and our markets. Sure. So that first quarter financially did not look good for us. Loss ratio wise, financially, it was really And so this is just me being fully transparent. And it's so
Yeah.
now the dust has settled on that. We're kind of repositioning and we're regrowing. And so far it's been really good, but there are those struggles still. I realize like, oh, there are things that I'm not that great at, I'm not great at
Yeah.
having hard conversations with people, like, and that's
Yeah.
something dealing with employees sometimes you have to have, like, you
Sometimes,
know
yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately. So there's
Um,
just, yeah, go ahead.
so since that happened, I know you said you like worked on building out a bunch of different processes and things like that, but did you make any like major changes to the, trajectory of the agency? Because that's a lot of times what we talk about on this podcast of in general, like I bought an agency, not even just like someone perpetuated the agency to me. Agencies are super sometimes resistant to change, right? The employees at the agency. It sounds like you guys, had a very gradual approach with you working at the agency, becoming president, then becoming owner. But
Yeah.
did you make changes? And if you did, how was the staff reacting in these first 7 months to them?
Oh, that's great. I love change. I'm constantly, so like I'm the worst at probably being a boss, because
The
they're like, oh no. But
Here he
I
comes
really,
again. Here he comes, right? Yeah.
no, but I really tried to not do that. But yeah, there was like from the get go, there's just a few little small changes, right? Of like, hey, we're gonna have a regular sales meeting again, or hey, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, we're gonna hold each other accountable to certain things.
worst.
Which even that was a little hard because people are like so used to just, well, I'm doing what I'm doing and nobody really asks me, and so that was
Hmm.
a little bit of a change. But then once we started losing markets, I really financially had to pivot, and we are heavy, we're a good 50-50 commercial and personal, and so, but our personal lines was like
Yeah.
depleted. I mean, we had
Sure.
no
Yeah,
markets, no nothing. So I was like, okay, what
absolutely.
do we do? Um, so I looked into, okay, can we write other lines of business, which we started to go into, and then it was like, can I write in other states because we're licensed in other states? Maybe I pivot, and then that's where I started to look at our book, and I was like, well, Arizona's been a big. Uh, we have a lot of clientele here. We have family here, and so I told the staff, I was like, guys, I got licensed in Arizona. We can still write here. So let's start talking to people. We'll start prospecting and marketing that way. I had a few contractors out here that were like giving me some referrals. So we started
Hmm.
to do that. And then it kind of snowballed into, well, maybe I just go live there and open a second office. That was going through my brain. And I was like, whoa, this is a lot of change happening at once. Like, I'm going to tell them, like, I bought the agency and I'm moving and all of these things. But it all just aligned because my wife's family was moving here. Um, it was like this whole thing kind of like stars aligned. And so I sat the
Mm.
team down and I said, well, here's my plan. And we're going to downsize our little office here in California. We're going to be more of a hybrid. Um, we have people in that office that have been there 20 years. So I'm like, you guys know that you guys are solid here. I'm going to move to Arizona, launch another office here, and we're just going to expand that way. And I'm going to kind of just go that route. That I can get paid less because it's less cost of living here, like the whole thing.
Hmm.
And I was terrified to hear their response because I was like, oh, they're just going to be like, but they were all like, that's makes sense. This is great. Yeah. And they were all so supportive. It
Good.
was so cool. And then I was like, I'm going to fly in regularly. We'll have our meetings still. And so that was all in the last like 2 months of
Good for
this last
you.
couple.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we just moved to Arizona last week. So it's been like still fresh.
Yeah, super
You
Mm.
fresh.
know, and then, yeah, and then the other part was, and I know we kind of talked about it before, but like we talked about rebranding, and if you want to touch on that, because
Yeah,
that
I
was
would
something
love to
I
hear that. Yeah, because there's a lot of people that say, when you have the agency in the first year, make no changes. But
right,
and change absolutely nothing because you don't want to lose retention. You don't want to lose people. You don't want to rock the boat much. You want to get your feet under you. Well, you had your feet under you. You've worked there for 10 years. You were actually doing the
Hmm.
operations for a couple of years prior. But the reality is your reality changed with markets and with, a pretty significant, event that impacted the agency pretty significantly, you've got to respond. Right. So I love that, I was thinking about it as you were describing. I know a lot of agencies that are in markets that are difficult, not just California, but there's that's definitely in existence in the hard market. And there's two rules, there's two ways to respond. I'm going to look at it as an opportunity and find a way to position myself to, be successful as the market around me is changing, or I'm going to complain that the way I've always done it isn't going to work. And therefore it's like I can't change. Therefore I'm going to suffer from this impact. And I'm not saying those are the only two, but you clearly were innovative in your thinking to say, hey, listen, there's other markets in this situation, and we can figure out a way to survive, or we can figure out a way to suffer this in the personal lines market that I'm in today. So super hats off to you. That's not an easy thing to do. No. But the other things that people sometimes say, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to change location. I'm not going to change, remote work. I'm not going to change the name. I'm not going to change whatever. But you're changing location, focus, and name in the first 7 months, right? So tell me about that. Like, what's driving rebranding? Tell me what that's about.
Yeah, for the last couple of years, I felt that what we had, nobody was excited about. Everybody kind of was coming in, doing their thing, and everybody on my team is great. I mean, I couldn't do without them. Like, they're phenomenal, and I don't blame them. But it was a little stale, I guess I could say. And I'm not saying that the branding is going to change all of that, but that was something in my heart where it was like, well, I'm also naturally a creative person, and I wanted this new chapter to kind of portray this new era of our agency. And we've talked about it for years. I mean, we kind of rebranded. I mean, we kept the name and everything. We just updated our logo when we the last couple of years. And even just that small change, I saw like some fire in people like, oh, this is cool. It's a little more like modern looking. So it kind of just sparked that I've always wanted to, because I never wanted it to be my name. I never wanted it to be an ego thing. I always wanted it to be, hey, I want to be in the bullpen with you guys, not in the corner office. Like, I'm not that kind of person. And so I told my wife from the beginning, and I told my father-in-law too. I was like, I want the name to be something that can represent all of us, and not just like, so if somebody says, where do you work? Oh, I work at Jackson. Oh, what's that? Oh, it's just, and they explain it as, that's my boss's name. Or I wanted it to be like, there's a reason behind it. It's this. And so, so it was a lot. And I talked to my father-in-law about it, and he was like, well, I changed the name day one when I bought it from my dad. And I was like,
funny.
Oh, okay. And so he was like really open, and he goes, I wouldn't be surprised if you did. Like, it makes sense, and especially because I'm not a Jackson, I still get calls, and it's like, can I speak to Mr. Jackson? And I'm like, he's no longer here. And then it kind of feels like, oh, well, who are you? And I have to kind of constantly explain, which I get. But it was just one of those things that I was like, I want something that I can, and for me, selfishly is weird, but like, I wanted a cool logo on our shirt, and I wanted like a hat, and I wanted stuff like, that's like the surface level stuff that I was
I get it.
That I was like, that I can proudly represent and be like, this is who we are. And then along with that,
your staff too, right? Like, it's not just it's representing who you are, but it's something that the entire staff can get behind.
100%. And we joked of like, but even going back to core values, I'm big with my core values and my discipline, and I was like, I want to incorporate some of that. And so the whole thing, while we're not changing necessarily everything, we're keeping the personal touch, we're doing it all. I just wanted it to look a new look. And so that was another thing that I was terrified to share with them, because I was like, oh man, not only am I sharing this, and this, here's the new brand reveal. And I was so terrified, and I poured my heart into this thing, and I was like, if they all hate it, like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. Like, and I shared it, and not one person had a negative thing to say. They were all super excited. Everybody was like, wow, Taylor, I see the heart in this. This is great. And so honestly, I got lucky because I know there's people that hate change and like, but like our team has been pretty open to it all. And
That's awesome.
yeah, so everything so far has been lining up, and I just thank them all the time. I'm like, thank you guys for everything. They're like, Taylor, you're doing a great job. Like, we know this is a lot. And I'm like, so it's been really, really cool to see and seeing them be so supportive with all this change, because it is a lot. And I knew that there was probably there could be some backlash with that, because I did get a lot of that people telling me, don't change this. This is way too much for 1 year. Like, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm just gonna do it. That's who I am. Like, I kind of go against the grain a little bit, but that's what's gotten me to where I am. I think honestly, even with my clientele, like the ones that find me, they're like, oh, man, you don't look like your average insurance guy or whatever it is. So I tend to kind of navigate against what everyone tells me, and my family,
which
my
is a
wife
good
doesn't
thing.
like that, but
yeah, which is a really good thing. Well, I got to say, I love hearing about your journey. I will tell you, you're every bit what you portray yourself online, if not better in person. So that's incredibly refreshing. And I love, love, love watching you figure this out, and the fact that you're willing to share it with so many other people, because I believe that the future of this industry is people that think differently, and is people that are going to differentiate themselves and place the right amount of importance on relationship, but also innovating and really thinking about how do we still serve our clients, but do it in the way that our clients want to be served. And honestly, the common thread here is that's what you're trying to do. You know, that's the core. It's no question or no wonder why they're following you, is because that's what you're trying to do, which is pretty impressive. So,
yeah. Thank you. And like, even just down to the smallest things, like most of our team are moms. Okay. We have a few single moms, but most of them are moms. And so one thing I did come January, which I knew was this big rub prior, was they don't really have anybody to watch their kids once their kids get out of school. You know, it was, well, I got to go pick them up from school, but then I got to figure out where we're taking them. And my in-laws kind of let them come into the office sometimes, but that was a distraction. And so what I kind of just told them, I was like, hey, let's try this where everybody kind of collectively, 3 out of 5 of us, they go pick up their kids. You can bring them home and then work from home from 3 to 5. And just that little change, which I haven't seen a dip in production or anything, made like the world of a difference for these ladies. And I just was like, that's what matters. Like, I don't want you to feel like you have to be here 8:30 to 5. Like, I want you to go to the events that your kids have the recital. That's the luxury of being in this industry. Like, you can go to those events, you can do that. And so like, sometimes I'm a little too nice and I have to like, hold on. Like I okayed too much, like vacation at once. So everybody's gone. But it's been honestly really good. And cause I'm like, I know I would want that, and I would want my wife to get that. And so like, that's one little thing. It's small, but
it's huge. Small, but it's huge. Small, but impactful, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. It's just trying to build that culture to be family focused and just caring, you know, that's my biggest thing.
Exactly.
So.
Well, Taylor, it has been awesome to have you on and learn a little bit more about your story. Thank you so much for joining us today. And
thank you.
We'll have to have you back on at like year 2 or 3 to see how all of these changes are going. But I have no doubt that you have the drive to make them all work and work well. And if they don't work well, you'll pivot and figure something else out.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And it means so much to be on here. I appreciate everything you guys are doing in the industry. I follow you guys very closely as well. And so when you guys asked, I was like, oh my gosh. So just thank you guys too as well.
Yeah,
really
of course.
It's a pleasure.
Of course.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how Agency Focus can help you grow your agency? Head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.